Welcome, 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 welcome. Hello, welcome. 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 Carl Dory, what are you doing here? What are you doing? You saw a free workshop, right? And you decided to come. Is that what it is? You have Carl muted. I like this. Carl is muted. I love this. So welcome, welcome, welcome. James, welcome. Good to see you again. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Had a little trouble getting in.
Yeah, so did I. I had a little bit of trouble getting in today. I think Abby is messing with me because she was messing with me yesterday. So I had a little bit of trouble getting in. Oshman, welcome. Welcome. Steve, welcome. Welcome, Earl, welcome. Welcome, Amy, I see you out there, welcome. So I'm going to go to work. We have a wonderful presentation for you today on the true cost of law firm interruptions. And this is probably applicable to any type of practice area. I mean, it's applicable to any type of practice area. It's really applicable to any type of business. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Steve Riley. And I get the pleasure of teaching today's workshop. And I am one of the partners, one of the coaches, one of the facilitators at Atticus. And my job is to help you today have a breakthrough in how you think about your practice around interruptions. And where we come from with that is our company Atticus we're about helping lawyers build great practices and great lives. So our focus is really on how to help lawyers both be more impactful in their practice, more impactful in their lives. So they have a great experience of both. Most of the time, what lawyers sometimes fall into the trap of is just trying to make more money and have a better practice. But you got to balance them. You got to balance them because you get more energy and more growth by having a great life and a great practice, not just a great practice. I've seen lawyers work for 15 or 20 years to build fantastic practices, but have horrible lives at home. So you got to keep in mind that you're first a human being and you're secondarily a lawyer. So you got to keep in mind having a great life and a great practice. Now, my intention is really to help you think differently about interruptions. And we have about 30 minutes to get together today, maybe a little less based on 24 minutes exactly now. And I want to try and take you through about 5 major ideas. And why are interruptions so problematic? You know when you're being interrupted, you know what's going on, you know they stress you out, but there's tremendous amount of research out there supporting that if you're being interrupted on doing something like taking a test, you do 20% poorer. Now, why is that so important to us as lawyers? Well, as lawyers, our clients pay us for our cognitive capabilities. So we want to be at 100% effectiveness all the time, not a percentage of the time, but all the time. So we need us thinking at our best all the time. 2 is it takes about 23 minutes to recover your flow on thinking and problem solving after an interruption. So once you've been interrupted, you go back to solving the problem. You take that big brain of yours and you go back to the problem. It takes you about 25 minutes to get it back. And then dopamine has a tendency to give you little spikes, little hits. So rewards, the dopamine rewards your brain. So you get little spikes and little hits, and you have a tendency to be gamified by interruptions. So you like interruptions, your brain likes interruptions. And there's other things in the law practice supporting a culture of interruption. So your brain likes interruptions. Now, how expensive are interruptions? And you could calculate this out for yourself. I'm going to do some math for you later, or give you an exercise to work on math later. But typically the average lawyer is interrupted about 7 times an hour. About 7 times an hour, right? And those are interruptions both from the perspective of somebody interrupting you or you interrupting yourself. Pay attention to how many times you're interrupted on today's 30-minute call, right? To see what happens. If you have an average 7 interruptions per hour, you're probably getting on average 50 to 60 interruptions today. So if your average length of interruptions is about 5 minutes and your hourly rate is, let's say, $400 an hour, the average cost per day to you in billable time is about $1,600. That's per day. That's $1,600 per day. ignoring the stress, ignoring the frazzled feeling, ignoring the frustration, ignore all that. It's just straight up dollar. So on a billable week, you're probably talking easy $5, $6, $7, $8,000 if you're having an average billable time. I mean, if your average billable is $400 an hour. So you have to kind of look at this and start saying, man, what are interruptions actually costing me financially? They're costing my focus, they're costing my attention, they're stressing me out, but they're also costing you straight up hardcore cash. So if you're trying to make more money, one of the most important strategies is to start getting a grip of how you spend your time and how you're being interrupted. All right, so start thinking about, okay, how do I actually improve my focus so I can reduce interruptions to increase my profitability? And that's really why we study so much for the past 30 years, have really studied interruptions. Now, I'm going to teach you two things, and hopefully teach you more too, but one of the big things I want to spend a moment with you, and if you're not looking at email or shopping on Amazon or doing whatever you're doing, look at the screen for a moment. If you have to write this down, how success caps your growth. If you have to write this down to be focused, do so, but how success caps your growth. And this is something I've been, our company's really studied for the past 30 years. And I've seen this happen over and over and over and over and over. So when lawyers start to talk to me about, here's what's going on in my practice, I generally know about the second or third statement where they're at, because at a certain point in time, success of your firm actually causes a ceiling and caps the growth of your firm. What do I mean by that? Well, when you start your practice, and inside Atticus, we have tools that we call strategic growth concepts, or concepts that really are designed to help you think strategically and grow your practice at the same time. But here's the funny thing, and I'm going to marry two concepts together in a moment. Here's the funny thing. As you become more successful, your interruptions and sources of interruptions grow exponentially. How does that play out? Well, the more staff that you have, the more you get interrupted. So when you go from one staff member to 5 staff members, it doesn't increase a little bit. It typically increases exponentially. So it's a multiplier. One person may interrupt you 5 times a day. 5 people are going to interrupt you 25 times a day. So the more people that you employ, the more interruptions you're going to get. 2, as you expand your referral base, and typically I think you need about 100 good referral sources as a solo and small firm attorney, but as you expand it from 10 to 20 to 50 to 100, that impact will cause more interruptions, because your referral sources will talk to you about status of cases, they'll refer you cases, they'll refer you questions, they'll refer you people that are probably not qualified. So you'll actually get more interruptions by higher referral base. So when we go from 10 referral sources to 100, we're going to multiply our interruptions tenfold. And then clients. When I first opened up my practice, I was ecstatic to have like a case, and then 10 cases and 50 cases. And then when I had about 75 cases in litigation, 150 cases pre-settlement, about 400 or 500 clients, my life became a living hell, because more clients equaled more interruption. More cases that are in litigation, more cases in controversy equal more interruptions. So you have to understand, as you grow and the more success you have, your success actually starts to trap your growth. So interruptions are really important for us to look at strategically and understand what is going on. So when I look at interruptions, interruptions are not the symptom. Interruptions are the disease. So as a doctor trying to diagnose growth issues inside a law firm, I want to know what the interruptions are. Why are we getting these interruptions? Who's causing the interruptions? What's the source of the interruptions? Not from the standpoint of stamping it out like a bug on the floor, but really thinking about what's the infestation being caused by, what's the source of this? And generally in working with lawyers, there's 3 things that we've learned about this. This is your second strategic growth concept. Your business skills must evolve to support your growth, and your business skills must be ahead of your growth curve. So usually lawyers go through there's about 7 of them, but the 3 major ones I like to talk about is first, lawyers learn how to manage themselves better. They learn how to think better. They learn how to focus better. They learn how to manage their time better. And then they hire people to help them. And somewhere around 4 to 6 people, the lawyers will start to cap. And why do they cap their growth? Well, we go back to this first trap. Most of the time, lawyers, when they get about 4 to 6 employees, can't grow beyond 4 to 6 because they can't manage more people. They can't manage more cases. They can't manage more clients. They can't manage more anything. And they're like, this is it. This is the cap. And so their income caps, their gross caps, and their stress level explodes, and they just start to melt. And they work like that for 5 to 10 years. So it's really important to understand that if you're going to take your practice and income and life to the next level, that these 3 stages of growth for you are critical steps, like a child learning to walk, like a child learning to run, to a child learning to sprint. You have to learn 3 skills, and these are business skills. These are not legal skills. I don't care. I'm going to assume you're a good lawyer. You can try a good case. You can argue something, whatever it is that you do for a living. I'm not too worried about, but the business skills are the critical element of this that we're focused on. So from a critical perspective, we learn first how to manage you, then we learn how to manage your team. And usually this is where you start going 6 to 8 staff. And then a lawyer learns how to create managers under their team, and that allows scalability. So when we look at interruptions, we're really looking at interruptions from the perspective of how they impact your thinking and how they impact your growth. So if you're a team leader, a paralegal, associate attorney, all these things apply to you. So interruptions are interruptions. And I'm going to ask you to write this down. The type and nature change as your practice grows, but the impact is still the same. Right? I don't care whether it's a knife wound, a dagger wound, or a blade wound, the pain is still the same. So whether you got 20 employees, 50 employees, or 0 employees, an interruption still causes the same impact in your practice. All right. So the big problem is going to be, first and foremost, interruption residue. Every interruption leaves a mark. Whether it's an email, a piece of mail that's tossed on your desk, or a text, it's going to cause a problem. So we have to start thinking about, how do we get ahead of these things? How do we avoid the attention residue? And we start to realize that all interruptions are not alike, right? All interruptions are not created equal. So we have to start to figure out, how do we really figure out which ones are important, what are the interruptions teaching us? Where do we need to go on our strategy to get control of this? And I'm going to teach you a quick tool, all right? Now, generally speaking, in most law practices, the interruptions break down in 3 major categories. And the 3 major sources are your team, because they need something, your clients, because they need something, and you, because you don't know how to stay focused in certain things. And the interruptions look like the following things. They look like external interruptions, where people call in, people walk in, people come in and ask you how your weekend was, or how your day doing, or they come in and say, I got one quick question, or they email you or Slack you or text you with one quick question, or you need a signature. Somebody comes, I just need your signature on this pleading so I can file it. And then you have family, and you have family. And we have the famous story of one of our clients. Her name's Kimberly Lee. Kimberly runs a fantastic practice, very efficient, very hardworking woman. And she got called one day for an emergency, and she gets pulled out of a great big case. I mean, great big meeting with a big client that took like 2 months to schedule. Gets pulled out of this by her assistant. Says, your father's on the phone. It's an emergency. And she runs the phone. Says, Dad, everything okay? He goes, yeah. I'm fine, but I have an emergency. I pushed a button on my iPad and all the icons are gone. All the icons are gone on my iPad. So I have an emergency. I need you to come fix this right away. You know, you would sometimes have to train your team. When my father says it's an emergency, ask him specifically, is there blood? Is it somebody in the ER? What's the emergency? So you need to learn how to deal with family on family emergencies. She also has a great story that her son called one day with an emergency because he couldn't find the salt in the kitchen. So, you have to think about these kind of things, right? I know Ginger's like, you got to be kidding me, right? Yeah, you can't make this stuff up, Ginger. It's true stuff. And then other types of interruptions: email, Slack messages, text messages, cell phones, notifications, field of vision, head noise. And for me, this is one of the big issues for me is I have to manage field of vision, things I see. So I have to have a clear field of vision. Otherwise, I get distracted by stuff. I get distracted. So what do we do? How do we help you? Where do we go? First thing is capture and study your interruptions. And we're posting in the chat box a interruption log. And I'm going to show you how to do this. But basically, it's pretty straightforward. You keep this on your desk. Print it out. I keep one on my desk. Just keep it on your desk. It's not a big deal. And when you get interrupted, write down, what the heck was that? And why did I get interrupted? Who was it? How long did it take? What was the purpose? And was it the phone? Was it somebody who came into the environment? And how important was it to me? Was it an A, a B, a C? Now, you could probably do this for a day and learn a lot. We usually recommend that you print one out and have it on your desk for probably 2 weeks, just to see if you can start to notice a trend. Now, I always like to track time, topic, source, and importance. Now, don't tell your team what you're doing. All right. So Leslie, if your team comes in, they go, every time I walk in, you're writing something down. Don't tell them why. Just track it. All right. Just track it for a week, maybe 2 weeks. Just track it. And then at the end, I want you to highlight it with green for self-interruptions, meaning it's something that you did. Yellow, a team interruption and kind of why they did it. And then client interruptions. Why did it, what was the client calling me for? Then take our second worksheet. And, those that you're in group programs, Carl, who's sneaking in under the tent here, because I guess he saw it as a free workshop, do the analysis. And we're posting the interruption log analysis for you on this, but it's learn from it. Okay. First step is who and what. And we've highlighted the interruption, so it's pretty quickly to look at. Second thing I recommend is that you rank your impact. So you think about, okay, what was this major time robber? Who cost me a lot with this? What was my biggest source of time suck that was causing this? Could be a really bad client, could be a needy team member, could be an associate who's bored and wants to come talk to you about cases. Someone wants to talk to you about politics, news, whatever it may be, but you want to see what they're doing and why they're doing it. And then step 3, do the math. Is it worth fixing? How much did I spend doing this? What did it cost me? Come up with your brainstorm and plan, and then execute your plan and then review it. All right. Now, I typically recommend that you do this probably a week to 30-day, execution of the plan. But it's those of you with a lot of staff or just some staff will probably want to share this with your staff so they can help you do this. Now, with that, I'm going to share with you 3 common strategies that we pretty much recommend to every law firm. All right. Here's the first common strategy. After you do the log, you analyze the log, you're going to notice some things. Here's my prediction. I'm saying that these are the 3 biggest predictions. I said these are the 3 most common ones that we see. Strategy 1, train your team to ask specific questions. So your team will have a tendency to come in whenever they have a question. And usually they'll come in or interrupt you or email you or text you. And really what the problem is 3 things. Number 1, they don't have access to you when it's convenient to you. 2, they lack training on certain issues. And 3, you have some breaks in your system. So the easiest way to start to study this is really going with what we call a question batching form, where you teach your team members to use the form instead of emailing you, and then schedule a morning or afternoon 15-minute meeting. So you eliminate the emails, the text, the Slack. And then when they come in with you, they should bring in with you the question batching form. I always recommended them. Sometimes I go in the conference room. Sometimes I go to their office with their questions, because then they could pull up files on the computer and we could look at things. But it allowed them to organize their thinking. And really what it allowed them to do was kind of capture 4, 5, 6 questions at one point. So when I met with them in 15 minutes, we could knock out 5 or 6 questions. It reduced my email tremendously, and it'll reduce your email tremendously, or Slack or text. One of the important things about this is it gives you an extraordinary opportunity for training, because one of the things you want to do when they start to bring in the questions is you ask them questions back. Well, what do you recommend? That's a really good question, Carl. What do you recommend? How do you want to handle that? You know, how do you think we should solve it? How do you think we should get this resolved? Hey, Leroy, I just saw you join us. Hey, bud. How do you think we should solve this? So these are fantastic ways of training your team and educating yourself on what's going on. Now, what you're probably going to end up doing is going to the next level, because you'll start to see that there's certain things you need to integrate into your week. You need to have planning appointments. You may need to have a case management appointment. You may need to have a project management appointment. You may have to have put quick huddles in your week. You may have to have training sessions in your week because your team needs help with stuff. They're not coming to you to annoy you. They're coming to you to have you help them solve a client's problem. They're just showing up as an annoyance because your head's focused on something else. They're really trying to help you and help the clients. And so you realizing that this is more of a blessing than a curse is a critical element to growth. So thinking about, how do I help them with this particular issue? 2, set client expectations. This is a very basic conversation, very basic, but one of the cool ways about this is starting to get clear with your clients. Here's how to communicate with us. Here's what to expect. Here's how not to communicate with us. And one of the things that we've really encouraged those of you who have staff is teach the team to have a designated hitter. So when a client calls, you can say, I want you to reach out to Leroy. Leroy is going to be your primary point of contact on this case. So if you got a question, ask Leroy. And Leroy is the expert on your case. So if Leroy's got a question, call Leroy. And Leroy is going to be your case manager. All right. And if something that Leroy needs to bring into, Leroy and I need to huddle on, that's great. But Leroy from this point forward will be moving the case forward. So you give them a point of contact. That nickname for us inside of Atticus, we call this a designated hitter, the person that steps to the plate to hit the ball for the client, not necessarily always you. So it's really shift your communication to the client to, I'm the hero, I can fix your problem, to we are the heroes and we can fix your problem. So it becomes a very team-facing approach. Strategy 3, and this is a difficult one, and I'm going to do this one very briefly. Strategy 3 is improve your focus. These are the list of self-interruptions, and this is my list, all right? This is how I interrupt myself, right? Number 1, I'm trying to procrastinate. I got something ahead of me that's really hard that I don't want to do. I got a big project I don't want to do. So I will find things to do to interrupt myself, like shop, see what's going on in the news. 2, I get distracted. I get an alert, a text. I get an email from one of the vendors I buy stuff from. Something's on sale, so I have to go check out the sale. I have friends who think they're very funny and they send me memes or funny quotes or funny stories, and they distract me. 3, as a litigator, I got trained only to respond to urgent deadlines. So nothing got serious until I had to get prepared to go to court or go to trial or go to a hearing. So I never got serious about anything until I had a very serious deadline. 4, I have this mistaken belief I can multitask. I can't. Most people can't, but we tell ourselves that. 5, I get bored. I just get bored, and whatever I'm working on is very boring. And so I go find something else to do as a way of interrupting myself from that task. And 6 is my favorite. Kathleen, who's our head of marketing, laughs hysterically at this one, because I say, I need to think about it. I need to think about that. Let me think about that. And think about it is the most sophisticated form of procrastination there is. That's what adults do. We don't say we're procrastinating. We say we have to think about it. And this is the most sophisticated form of procrastination for a professional, because, we deal with complex problems. So when we tell somebody we got to think about it, it's our way of saying, I ain't dealing with this now. I ain't going to deal with this now. I probably won't deal with it later, because this think about it thing, this card works really, really well for me. I got the think about it card. Boom, there it is right there. I'm thinking about it. And you'll find that your associates, your paralegals, your partners will play the think about it card because they're procrastinating. They don't know what the hell to do. So they're saying, I'm thinking about it. I don't know. I have no answer to this. So one of the techniques to work around the think about it strategy is to play a game. And the game that we recommend people do is, I call it a sprint. There's a time management technique called the Pomodoro method, but it's basically you set a timer and say, okay, I'm just going to work on this thing that I'm thinking about or procrastinating for 15 minutes. Now, the classic approach with the Pomodoro method is 25 minutes. I typically, if I can get 5-minute focus, I'm thrilled, but anything that allows you for 5 minutes to 15 minutes, work on something. I do a 5-minute sprint on something I'm procrastinating on in the morning, and then I do another 5-minute sprint in the afternoon, just as a habit, way of trying to get myself out of the procrastination trap. And so it's a way of working around that. Now with that, I'm going to bring us to a close just because of our time. I'm going to ask you to post in the chat box, which I'll look at later, what was your biggest takeaway out of today's workshop? And I'm also going to, at the same time, tell you about upcoming programs. So June 8th, we're doing a 90-minute workshop on how to grow a law firm, goals, targets, and finishing the year strong for those people that want to have a big goal for the end of the year. And we're doing that workshop. It's $99, but since you attended, you can use the coupon GROW Workshop 50. And you can get half off, so basically $49 for that workshop if you're interested. I believe I am leading that workshop, so if you're interested in doing that, we'd love to have you. Other final thoughts and questions that anyone has in our last 1 minute or 2 minutes here, I'll be more than happy to answer. So, and then what we'll also do is send you a link if you're interested in upcoming workshops and programs. So Abby, I'm going to stop sharing just because of time.
Okay.
Highlight any questions that you saw that you want me to see if I can address in a minute or so.
So I actually do have one. Stephen asked, what if the interruptions are work-related or billable?
You know, that's a great question, Stephen. Where are you at? Are you unmuted? Are you still with us? I can't see you on the screen.
Just unmute. Yeah.
Hey, Steve. So frame the question again for me. So when you say,
Well, so let's say you get an interruption, which is somebody knocks on the door, secretary, whomever, hey, this guy's on the phone. It is a billable client, right? But
right,
I do agree that you're stopping the flow and you're not continuing to concentrate on the items that you were, but you know, there is some kind of a trade-off there in terms of, it came up when you had the, you posted the numbers about the loss of income
right,
caused by interruptions. That's, I
Right.
said, well, what if it's billable? Yeah.
yeah. So what so it's a great question. The common response for me is if it's a billable case and a good client, I usually train my team, my legal assistant, my paralegal to schedule a phone appointment. That way I can be prepared for the meeting, because nothing I hate worse than having a client say, hey, look, I've been thinking about my case. I know we got this issue coming up. And me going, I got 75 cases. My head's been in one that I'm going to be trying a week from now. I can't remember your last name, let alone your first name at this moment, right? So I've been going through a depot that is an expert witness depot on this issue. You know, and so it's hard to pivot for me. So I want to train my assistant or my paralegal to say, that's fantastic. Schedule a 30-minute block or schedule a 15-minute block. Also, Stephen, it gives you the defense of it's a billable time. It's a billable appointment, because sometimes when a billable client calls, they're not expecting you to charge them for the call, right? Because it's just one quick question. I just called you with one quick question. Say, no, you called me for legal advice about this, you know, so you want to train your legal assistant to say, that's a great question. Let me schedule 15 minutes with Steve or 30 minutes with Steve on such and such time, because I know he's in the middle of working on something for a case. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect, terrific. So it's a good strategy to use, and one that also stops you from having to explain to the client, you did call me, so I did bill you. That's how this works, right? And same thing with the email, same thing with text. I would always push to the assistant, hey, I got this email from Carl about his case. Please schedule a 15-minute phone appointment, or please schedule a 30-minute phone appointment. It's more efficient for us as lawyers, right? So good. Any other questions? Great question, Steve. All right, Scott, I think, how you doing, bud? I think you've got a serious, you have 3 T's in Scott. Did you see that?
I did not see that stuff.
I was like, either, I was like, I have a stutter. So I was like, oh, he's going to really mess with me because he put Scott, T. So good.
In law
Right.
school 30 years ago, I wrote very sloppily on my seating chart, and instead of Scott H-O-H, the instructor thought my name was Scott Hot. So that became my nickname for the rest of law school.
I think I'd rather go by Hot Scott.
Yeah,
Than the nickname I had. I was very skinny at one point in my life, and my friends called me Twig. I will not be confused by Twig now that they see me now, they call me Trunk. So it's much, I like Scott Hot or Hot Scott. That's much better. All right, Abby, we got anything else? I know we're committed to 30 minutes. I want to overstay my welcome on.
Nope, I don't see any other questions that came through at all.
All right, so thank you. We got some other upcoming webinars like this in the future that if you, I hope to see you on. I can't recall half of them off the top of my head, but we typically are doing about 2 a month. So if you're interested, make sure you register for the upcoming ones. And I think we have some international folks who also joined us today. So thanks for joining us. With that, we'll pull it to a close. Thank you, everybody. I look forward to seeing you in the future. Bye.
Hey guys.